Hello.
Hello.
Happy
Welcome.
Halloween.
Happy Halloween. Oh yeah, we have to
Uh,
address the
yes.
elephant in the room, the teeth
What
in the room.
elephant? The teeth? The fourth?
Yeah.
Um, you guys, if you're not watching on YouTube or on
You should.
Spotify, do that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, all of our episodes play video on Spotify now, which I like forget sometimes. So if you're on
Yeah.
Apple, I mean, I guess you can stay on Apple, but just like take a quick peek quick because it's worth it. I
Because
mean, thanks.
Olivia's developed a speech impediment in the last week.
What speech impediment? I don't know what you're talking about. I did
Girl
the
Scout
vampire.
spooky.
Very
That's right.
spooky. And we have matching shirts.
Yeah.
Amy got
Easy
me one
bake
for my birthday,
Colin.
so I could be just like her on
Yay!
Halloween. And
It's
I
tradition.
literally got it in the mail like 2 minutes before we started recording.
Yeah.
So love
Perfection.
that timing. In
Same.
case you weren't aware, I'm Liv the vampire,
And I'm Amy.
the
I don't know
witch,
what. Oh, the witch. Yeah, yeah.
the
I love
witch,
that. Yep.
and this is Girls
Girls
Gone
gone spooky.
Spooky. There are a lot of S's in our title, our
Yeah.
podcast name. And
Girls.
I'm committed. I'm not taking
Uh-huh.
them off.
No,
So unless
they
they
look
fall
good.
off, I'm not taking them off.
Yep.
Okay, well, it is a scary story episode because it is a holiday, the best
Yay!
holiday, Halloween. So
Of the
happy
year.
Halloween, you spooky little babies.
Yes.
Um, we actually got an email from a listener
Oh, yeah.
in response to our recurring dreams episode. So I was
Ooh.
thinking to kick us off, I'll read some of
Yes.
that. Okay,
Let's do it.
beauty. So they requested to stay anonymous, so I'm going to keep them gender neutral and will not be revealing their name.
Okay.
They say recurring dreams. First off, I definitely get the falling one, the teeth one, and the oh shit I'm naked one. And then there's a final exam today. I thought I dropped this
Oh.
class one and probably some other common ones. This one is so interesting. They say I have heard/read that another quote unquote common recurring dream involves discovering a previously unnoticed room in one's home.
Whoa.
Uh,
Weird.
That is spooky as shit.
Yeah.
If you have had that dream, please let us
Tell
know.
us.
Girlsgonespooky
Yeah.
at gmail.com or DM us because
Mm-hmm.
that sounds really scary. And maybe it's
Yeah.
not, but that sounds really scary to me. They say, I've never had this dream, and I've never spoke with anyone who says they've had it, but I recall hearing somewhere that it's common. And then they asked, have either of you had that one? No, we
No.
have not.
No.
Maybe our listeners have though.
Yeah.
So
I
there's
hope
our
someone.
call for feedback.
Action.
Action. Yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
action? Does that make sense?
That works. Yeah.
Doesn't matter. No rules. It's Halloween. Okay, they continue to say, and this is like a creepy one. When I was younger, I had recurring dreams about monsters trying to get me, which I think is like typical for little
Yeah.
kids. Typically, they were either kind of werewolves or these weird faceless people whose faces sort of looked like big lumps of moist clay covered with plastic wrap. Blech.
Oh, weird.
Gray, featureless, and a bit shiny. In a typical dream, I'd be in class feeling very sleepy, with all these monsters also in class sitting at desks or whatever. I'd eventually start to droop a little, and as I'd start to nod off inside the dream, I'd see all the monsters, including the teacher, go quiet and pivot to look at me, waiting for me to fall
Ew.
asleep.
Oh
So I'd
no.
jerk awake again inside the dream, and they'd all look away and go back to acting normal. And it would be like that over and over and over again. They say, ugh.
That's scary.
Yeah, very scary. Another one, they say, I'm a public school teacher and managing student misbehavior is a regrettable part of the job. I have dreams a bit similar to the test I haven't studied for, in which I show up to class and realize that I don't have a lesson plan. As I try to throw something together, students are starting to get increasingly rowdy. So I settle on an impromptu lesson idea, but realize that I'm missing a piece of lab equipment or whatever that I'd need. So back to the drawing board. While the student behavior becomes increasingly dangerous, embarrassing, and stressful. Here's the thing. every teacher I know has this dream.
Hmm.
Isn't that interesting? The
Yeah.
details, of course, vary, but the underlying situation is the same. Their partner stopped teaching over 10 years ago, but still routinely has this dream. Every
Wow.
teacher I've spoken to about this has the same one. I'm about 5 years from retirement, but I fully expect to keep having this dream for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Weird, right? Side note, teaching can be stressful. They
I'm
say,
not surprised.
yeah, they say I'm enjoying the podcast. Stay spooky.
Uh,
So I thought that was a fun little
yeah,
listener write-in.
I love that.
And we love those. So they don't
Mhm.
have to be scary stories, guys, that you write into us either. We just want to hear from you and hear your thoughts on the podcast. So
Yeah,
send them, babies.
anything really.
Anything. Well, since I kind of started with a spiel, do you want to go first with your first story?
Oh, sure. I can do that.
Sorry, caught you off guard.
Yeah, we were going out of order
Me,
here.
you, me. You, me. You,
But
me
go
you.
first, then you go first.
Yeah.
Oh no, you go second.
Yeah, I go
Almost.
second.
Okay. All right. So both of mine are from my scary stories are from No Sleep, of course.
Hell yeah, brother.
Neither are very Halloween themed. They're just
That's okay.
scary. So
I have one Halloween themed one.
okay, perfect. Okay, so this one is called I Saw Something on the Evening News That I Can't Explain.
Ooh.
So it's by capital OQS.
Okay.
And they say, my work friends and I were out at our favorite pub last night. Not a fancy place, but, cheap beer and close enough to home that I don't have to drive. The night started out normally enough, the four of us crammed into a small table off in the corner, mostly talking shop and shitting on our boss. Being this was the middle of the week, there weren't too many other people around, maybe 8 or 9 others in the whole place. Everybody just kind of keeping to themselves, sort of people you'd expect to see in a pub on a Wednesday. Anyway, from where I'm sitting, I have a pretty good view of the TV behind the bar. Jesse, the bartender, is lazily flipping through channels and passes by our local news station. There's a brief burst of orange and red on the screen, which I register as a fire happening somewhere, which then disappears as Jesse switches over to the next channel. Something about the image looks oddly familiar, though. Hey, can you switch that back? I call out to her. The news comes back on, and suddenly I recognize the building in the frame. It's my building, and it's burning.
Oh, no.
Holy shit, I say loudly enough that a few people follow my gaze to the television. That's my apartment. The crowd in the bar falls kind of quiet. Everybody's staring up at the screen now. The screen shows a wide shot of the outside of my building. The camera must be set up on the north end of the block because I recognize a lot of the shops in the ground floor. Property management, dry cleaner, convenience mart, etc. The top left corner of the building is aflame. It's not a huge fire, but it looks like a few units between the top 4 floors or so have already been engulfed by the flames. Jesus, man, one of my coworkers says, that just sucks.
Understatement. Your whole apartment building's burning down. Sucks.
Oh, that sucks. There's an uncomfortable murmur of agreement that passes around the table. I mean, I don't blame them. I wouldn't know what to say in this situation either. Yep,
yeah, fair
I
enough.
agree, just as awkwardly. Thankfully, my apartment is only about halfway up and located on the west side of the building. I cross my fingers, hoping my stuff will be okay. The camera cuts to a reporter on the scene. He's standing a little further away, looking at the shops in the background. I can tell he's across the street on the northwest corner of the building. Firefighters are expected on the scene any moment, he's saying, and hopefully they'll be able to contain this horrible inferno before it spreads any further.
Hopefully the newscaster wasn't also giggling. You're like...
I was trying. I'm like the little girl in that meme, laughing in front of the building on fire.
You could be a newscaster. You could do it.
So?
Yeah.
I don't know if I have that quality to my voice. Breaking news.
I think you could. Yeah. I think you'd have to make it a little whispery, I think. Like kind of a
Oh.
sexy evening news voice. Like how you just did.
Okay.
Breaking news.
Did I sound like that? Okay. Let's keep
Yes,
going.
you did. Let's keep
Okay.
going.
Okay, hopefully they'll be able to contain this horrible inferno before it spreads any further. As I was saying before, it's very fortunate that everyone was able to evacuate the building before things got too bad, or who knows what tragic events may have unfolded. He's really laying it on thick, my other coworker jokes. I chuckle a bit. All things considered, at the moment, it really didn't seem all that bad. But then, a few moments later, hang on, the reporter on TV says, we're getting some updated information. Hang on while we readjust the camera. The previously locked down camera starts to shift, the angle focusing on an area of the building about halfway up the west side. All the lights in the building are out except for one, and I feel a weird creeping sensation as I start counting the windows from the bottom. 5 up, 2 over. That's my place. I swore I turned that light out, I think, at first. Then I see it. There's a person standing in my window. The camera is zoomed out too far to make out any features, but it definitely looks like a man, and it's definitely standing in my apartment. I watch petrified as the camera zooms in closer, the reporter babbling on about the overlooked, ill-fated soul still trapped in the blazing such and such. As the image gets closer, I start to make out more details. The person is dancing or something. I don't really know how to describe it. I don't know how to describe it, but he's moving around a lot, and everything he's doing has this bizarre rhythmic quality to it. He starts waving his arms in the air, back and forth, and then he's waving them up and down at his sides. Then he's banging both fists on the glass. Then he's waving his arms over his head again, back and forth. Everything he's doing is to the exact same tempo. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. He starts jumping up and down, waving his arms over his head like he's trying to get someone's attention from a long distance. But everything is to the exact same rhythm. What the fuck, I say, my voice a hoarse whisper. And then the camera gets a little closer, and finally we can make out the person's features. It looks almost exactly like me. It's wearing the exact same clothes that I'm wearing now, clothes I changed into moments before leaving the apartment earlier. Its face looks almost exactly like mine as well, except for its eyes. Its eyes are far too big for a normal person. It also has this almost comical look of horror on its face. I don't even know how to describe it. Imagine if someone were pretending to look scared, but as a joke. It would have almost seemed funny if the circumstances were different, but instead it was just extremely unnerving. No one in the bar is talking now. Everyone is fixed on the TV. The quote-unquote person is still swaying and waving around, beating its hands on the glass, jumping in circles. I almost don't hear the reporter mention the fact that firefighters have rushed into the building and are now heading for my floor. Oh God, I think, without really understanding what was happening. Please don't go in there. I stare transfixed at the screen. From this angle, you can just barely see the top of my front door through the window, not too far behind where this creature is flailing around. Right now, it's holding its face in its hands and shaking its head from side to side as if saying no. Suddenly, the door behind it bursts open, as presumably the firefighters have entered my apartment. The creature stops moving. For a second, I see its expression change. The comical look of horror is gone, replaced by a huge smile filled with enormous pointed teeth. Our favorite theme.
God.
Yeah. Then the lights go out. We all just sat there, staring at the screen as the camera slowly zoomed out from the now dark window. No one says anything as we all quietly pay our bill and leave. I went directly to my sister's place across town and asked to stay with her. I told her there was a fire at my apartment, and that's it. When I tried to find footage from the news online later that night, it seemed like they had edited the last part out. I don't know if any of you on this subreddit know what that thing was, but I hope they didn't put out that fire. I hope they let the whole place burn to the ground.
Oh, that gives me goosebumps,
know.
dude.
Scary.
Shit. Also, speaking of the like creepy Smile, I watched the movie Smile. Do you remember when that came out? Okay, I watched the original one. The second one is coming out, or maybe it came out already. It's coming out soon. But the first one was like pretty good. Like we were, kind of impressed. Like I thought it was going to be, I don't know, like not slasher, but kind of corny, I guess. I mean, they're all horror movies are a little bit corny, but it was actually like really quite scary. It was similar to It Follows, which I think I've talked about on here before.
Yeah.
But the smiling is like really creepy.
Yeah. That I was on, what's it called, Ultimate Guitar or whatever, looking at tabs. And when I scroll through, I always get ads for the Smile movie, and it has that girl smiling.
They're so scary.
And like, just that image is enough for me to know I won't be safe.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely not your vibe.
Scary.
But for any of you spooky movie peeps, you might like it.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, that was a good one. That was a very good start, Amy.
Okay, let's hear yours.
Okay, so here's my first one, my non-Halloween themed one, and this is from Right Chris Wright.
Perfect.
And this is, I thought this one would be fun because I feel like on Halloween people like to do like spooky games, and so I found a spooky game story, also from No Sleep.
Love
it. With all stories here on No Sleep, the disclaimer, do not try this at home, is a given. That being said, I could probably prevent copycats by changing some of the details so that even if you managed to find the right pickup spot, you probably wouldn't be able to summon the hitchhiker. But hey, if you're adventurous, go for it. If you follow the rules, it's perfectly safe, but the knowledge you gain may not be. There's an urban legend in my hometown about a hitchhiker on Butter Street that will appear if you follow a series of instructions. Once summoned, you drive him to his destination, and if you play the game right, he will answer an unknowable question for you. If you play wrong, well, just don't play it wrong. There's an old gravel pit at the end of Butter Street. The water there is the deepest blue. It's almost like staring into the ocean, that's how deep it is. More than one car over the years has been dredged up from the depths there. Depths.
That's hard to say even without.
That is hard to say, yeah. Officially, these drivers all fell asleep at the wheel, but unofficially, deaths from cars careening off the road into the gravel pit during the wee hours of the night only add more veracity to the urban legend. They were the poor souls who broke the hitchhiker's rules. So far, no one has pinpointed the origin of the legend. I've reached out to the local historical society and searched through newspaper archives in the local library and haven't found any mentions of the hitchhiker. It's a modern piece of folklore passed around coffee shops and diners in the early morning hours until it eventually made its way to high school cafeterias. It wasn't until someone posted about the hitchhiker on a local Facebook group that people began sharing their experiences and the rules of how to summon him. But as more people shared their experiences, the details about the hitchhiker varied from person to person. His clothes have switched up over the years, growing more modern. His speech doesn't reflect any particular time period either. No mannerisms or 23 skidoo phases to help date him. Sometimes he's in his late teens, sometimes he's much older. Even with these differences, everyone who claimed to have summoned the hitchhiker swears that he was real. The only common thread in all of the stories of the hitchhiker is that he's always wet when he enters the car, followed by what were always his first words to the driver: "It's a bad night for rain." To which you reply, "Is there ever a good night?" He laughs, and that's when you know the game has begun. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I should go back to how I know. I'm getting ahead of myself. I should go back to how I got him in the car. The game starts by turning your car on exactly at midnight. Where doesn't matter, only when. And once the car is on, you can't get out, nor can you let anyone else in. Just you in your car at midnight. What comes next is a lot of waiting because you have to be at the pickup point on Butter Street at exactly 3 a.m. That's right, 3 hours sitting in the car. Those are the rules. With 3 hours to kill, a lot of people show up early and just cruise the road so they can time getting to the pickup spot at exactly 3 a.m. But as the urban legend has grown in popularity, the local police will pull you over if they see your car circle back down Butter Street more than once. The local cops all know the rules, so if they pull you over, they'll have you turn your car off and get out of the vehicle, thus immediately ending the game. On the night I decided to summon him, I filled up my car at the gas station at 11:45, then went in and took advantage of the facilities to ensure I wouldn't need to make any pit stops before 3. Then I waited in the parking lot until it was exactly midnight and started up my car. I should add that it doesn't matter what type of car you drive, but a 4-door car is preferred over a 2-door or a pickup. You don't want to look directly at the hitchhiker, not until the end of the trip, and that's much easier to do if he's sitting in the back seat versus sitting beside you. I drove in a big loop around the county until it was time to head to the pickup spot, avoiding any of the known police traps to keep from having to try again another night. I kept my maps program running on my phone so I knew exactly what time I had to make my way to Butter Street. I can't imagine how difficult it was to be an urban legend hunter before real-time GPS maps. Side note, you can play with the radio on or off. It has no impact on the hitchhiker. Radio on is preferred if you choose not to engage him. He can get quite loud and belligerent if you won't talk to him. I pulled up to the pickup spot, stopped the car, and then followed the summoning instructions. The rules posted online had small variations, but attempts that contained the following actions had the highest rate of success. 1. Leave the car on and in drive, but engage the emergency brake. 2. Turn off everything but the car, lights, air conditioning, radio, phone. 3. Unlock the car doors 3 times. 4. Roll down all the windows. 5. Press the brake pedal 3 times. 6. Turn the headlights back on. And 7. Wait 3 minutes. If he's not there by 3:03, then you did something wrong. With the lights off, I noticed a fog rolling in. Whether it was part of the ritual or not, I don't know, but it definitely added a creepy aesthetic to waiting on a dark road at 3 a.m. for a ghostly hitchhiker. Other than the idling of my Subaru, the road was still and quiet. I love that they're in a Subaru for some reason.
It adds to it.
I had even shallowed my breathing so I could listen for footsteps, giggling teenagers, other cars. But there was nothing. I never even heard the car door open. I only heard it shut.
Whoa. Oh. Perfect timing.
Good timing.
Sound effect.
He's raising his eyebrows at me through the door window. That's so funny. I only heard it shut. It's a bad night for rain, a voice said from the back seat. I felt every hair on my body stand up as a chill ran up the back of my neck. Over my stuttered breathing, I could hear the steady drip of water from his pant leg hitting his shoe. I didn't turn around, but I stole a peek in the rearview mirror. He wasn't a big guy, maybe my height. He was dressed in a white Dr. Dre The Chronic t-shirt, a red windbreaker, and what looked like dark denim jeans. The rule said the mirror was fine as long as you didn't turn the lights on in the car, but never look him directly in the face, not until he's out of the car and ready to answer your question. I gathered up my courage to reply back, but the words stuck in my throat. I cleared and tried again. Is there ever a good night? A pause as I stared back in the mirror at the shape in my back seat. I held my breath, waiting. Then, after what felt like ages, I saw his hand slap against his wet knee as he laughed. I let out the breath I was holding as I disengaged the parking brake. Hold up. Put your wipers on, champ, he said. With all that rain, you won't see the road. This was a scripted reply, part of the game. Right, sorry. Also a scripted response. Despite his insistence on the rain, it was bone dry outside. Per the rules, I turned on my windshield wipers, setting them to their fastest setting. He settled back against the seat, laying his arm across the back window. Mind if I turn on the radio? I asked. This wasn't a part of the game, but I figured it was best to ask and be polite. It's your ride, he said. His voice was a smooth baritone. One request: no country, please. Sure thing, I answered. I put on a local top 40 station. I pulled back onto the road just as the clock hit 3:03. I stole looks in the rearview mirror as often as I felt comfortable while still keeping the car on the road. Luckily, this part of Butter Street was pretty straight and didn't have a lot of traffic. From his voice and the hand tapping against the wet knee in the back seat, I could tell he was a black man, maybe mid-20s, and dressed like he came from maybe 1996. Nothing like any of the descriptions I read on the Facebook post about the hitchhiker. Where are you headed? I asked. This is another scripted part of the game. I'm headed to see my girl. I worked the late shift tonight. Thought I'd pop in to surprise her. His response to this question was always different. That, coupled with the fact that the appearance of the hitchhiker seemed to shift, led many to believe that it's not the same spirit every time. I pulled up at the stop sign at the end of Butter Street. Yeah, you want to make a right here, he said. I followed his orders, turning right. Other than following them, the destination and directions were irrelevant. The ride goes until 3:33 a.m., the witching minute. Not even the witching hour, but it's like demonic.
Time. Yeah.
The time. When he tells you to pull over. So what's your story, man? He asked. A scripted prompt, but how you reply is completely up to you. Some have ignored talking to him altogether, which apparently is not recommended. Some have shared a little out of politeness. Others have talked right up until drop-off time, filling the air with their own words. The more you talk to him, the more he talks back. It doesn't impact the game, it just makes the journey a little more interesting. Even though I'm driving a ghost, his voice is quite disarming, making him easy to talk to. I have a day job that pays the bills, just boring office stuff. But in my spare time, I like to explore urban legends and haunted places. Go out looking for proof of life after death. Aw, for real? Damn, that sounds spooky as hell. Unscripted reply. He leaned forward, putting his elbows on his knees. In the rearview mirror, I could see the sleeves of his windbreaker were shredded. What's the scariest thing you've seen? Take a right up here. Unscripted. I wanted to say, besides this, but I held my tongue. All indications from everyone who has played the Hitchhiker's game say that he is unaware of his own situation. He's just a passenger getting a ride to his destination. Attempts to get him to recognize his ghostly predicament do not go well, so I do not advise bringing it to his attention. I took the next right as I continued my story. About 2 years ago, I was on an overnight ghost hunt at the Ohio State Reformatory. It's an old prison up in Mansfield where they filmed Shawshank Redemption, I said. I figured if he was from the 90s, he'd remember the movie. So there's a group of 6 of us on the tour, and we're over in the administration wing, and I felt this hand press into my back like it was guiding me forward. Oh, hell no, my ass would be gone up out of there. I ain't even playing. Unscripted response. It's about this time that I realized that all of the street lights were off. Not just the lights on the street, everything was dark. Granted, it was the middle of the night, but we even drove past a Taco Bell that was open 20 minutes ago when I passed by on my way to Butter Street, and now it was completely dark. Not a single car in the parking lot. That's the second thing I noticed. No cars. We've driven 15 minutes without passing a single car. Not only were there no cars on the road, there weren't any cars in any driveways or parking lots. As we rolled by a Ford dealership, the entire lot was empty. It's as if we'd stepped completely out of our reality and into a different one. So what did you do? Unscripted. I've clearly got his interest. I continued the story. I turned and looked, and no one is behind me, but I can smell a rose-scented perfume. Apparently one of the ghosts there is the wife of the warden. She was killed when the warden's gun went off by accident. It fell out of the closet, went off, and shot her in the lung. That's crazy, man. But I can feel why she might be hanging around still, you know what I'm saying? Like she's got some unfinished business and shit because her life was cut short like that. We rode in silence for a bit, I don't know for how long. I tried looking back at him in the mirror, but he hung to the shadows. Then I felt his cold breath against my neck, sending shivers up my spine. Could you imagine what that's like? He said, unscripted. What do you mean? I replied, also unscripted. Having your life cut short like that due to the careless act of another human being? That's pretty fucked up. Unscripted. My heart thudded against my chest. Did I mess up? Did I not follow the rules? Did he? He laughed and sat back in his seat. I'm just playing, man. You need to relax.
That is not how I imagined he would
No.
talk. That's spooky as hell.
Yeah,
Or whatever
spooky
he
as
said at
hell,
the
yes.
beginning.
I felt his hands gripping my shoulders, giving them a little rub. They were cold as ice. He patted my shoulder, then sat back. I felt a trickle of water go down my back from the cold, wet spots on my shoulder where he grabbed me. Oh, this right, coming up. He leaned forward, pointing at the road. His skin was ashy and his thumbnail was split to the nail bed. The smell of wet loam wafted into the front of the cabin. I made the turn. I peeked at the clock on my dashboard and saw it was 3:29, only 4 minutes to go. You got any family? He asked. Scripted. I felt my heart leave my throat and drop back into my chest. We were back on script. I used to, just me now. That's tough, I know. Before my girl, I was all alone. I don't know what I'd do if I didn't have her. Life would just be empty, unscripted. A quiet stillness followed, like he was hit by a pang of remorse. For a moment, it was so quiet, I wasn't sure if he was still back there, but then I felt his wet, cold hand clap me on my shoulder. But don't worry, man. You seem like an okay dude, going out of your way to help a young man like myself on a rainy night like this. I'm sure you'll find someone. Just takes time. Unscripted. We rode in silence as I stole glances down at the clock on the dash. As soon as the time flipped to 3:33 a.m., I heard his weight shift as he leaned forward. Oh, this is me, up here. He pointed to a spot up the road. There was nothing there. No house or driveway, not even a place to pull off. I pulled the car onto the shoulder and eased to a stop. Just like when picking him up, I turned off the lights, radio, and engaged the parking brake, leaving the car in drive. You don't have to bother with the locking and unlocking 3 times or the business with the brake pedal. Just unlock the car. Also, and this is very important, do not watch him get out, do not look at him in the rearview mirror, and do not do anything but look down at your hands on the steering wheel. Keep them on the wheel, 10 and 2, and wait. This time, I heard the car door open and slam shut. I could also hear the sound of his shoes against the gravel as he walked around the front of the car to the driver's side. I wanted to look up, but I managed to fight the urge by counting the seams on the steering wheel. Thanks for the ride. Do you have a question for me? He asked, scripted. It was still his voice, but unlike our previous conversation, it was completely devoid of personality or emotion. Okay, I should say it again. Thanks for the ride. Do you have a question for me? That's better.
Perfect. Great delivery.
Once you completed the ride, you were allowed to ask him a question. It has to be something personal but unknowable. You can't ask for lottery numbers or things like that. People have supposedly asked about locations of lost heirlooms, the exact time and date of their own death, the fate of long lost relatives, all sorts of personal questions they'd have no other way of knowing. For the second time that night, the words failed to leave my throat. I took a deep breath and swallowed. Is she at peace? I asked. And then without thinking, I added, does she blame me? My words were barely above a whisper, but I knew he heard me. After you ask, then and only then are you allowed to look directly at him. So I did. I felt all color drain from my face as I looked up. The hitchhiker had no face at all. Only 2 shiny black spots where his eyes should be. He had no mouth, no nose, nothing else. Just 2 quarter-sized black pools of what looked like liquid ink where his eyes should be, and they reflected every star in the sky. I couldn't look away from those eyes, even though I very much wanted to. That's 2 questions, my friend, he replied, unscripted. My heart jumped back into my throat. I broke the rules. I fucked up. I asked 2 questions. I was paralyzed, staring up into his face. I sat looking up at him for what felt like hours. I pulled back a little as his hands moved up to the sides of his face just under his ears. I thought for a moment he might rip off his false face and reveal another more terrifying one. But he didn't remove his face. Instead, he pulled his hoodie up over his head, returning his empty face to the shadows. But since you were kind enough to save me from walking all this way in the rain, I'll answer you, unscripted. Before I could exhale a sigh of relief, he gripped the door frame and leaned down so I was staring directly into his empty eyes. She's not at peace, and she does blame you.
Oh no.
Even with the hood up, I know.
What did he do?
I could see every last star in the night sky in those inky black pools. I can't fully capture what I saw in them. It was like staring at both vast infiniteness and vast nothingness. They held everything and nothing at the same time. His eyes, they were like staring into eternity. As he stood up from the window, I let out the breath I was holding. My hands shook as I pulled them off the steering wheel. Drive safe, scripted reply, the last thing he says before he leaves. He walked away behind the car. You can watch in the rearview mirror. Watch him walk. Walk him watch. You can watch
Close
him
enough.
walk in the rearview mirror, but don't turn around or get out or try to follow him. I watched until he disappeared into the darkness and waited until I could no longer hear his footsteps against the gravel. When I turned on my headlights, I realized I was back on Butter Street, parked on the side of the road next to the drop off for the gravel pit. This was always where you ended up after the hitchhiker leaves. All I had to do was release the parking brake and the car would roll towards the drop off, gaining speed until it launched off the cliff into the deep blue water waiting below. I don't know how long I sat there with my hand on the parking brake release, contemplating his answer to my question. But then I saw them headlights. A car was coming up the road towards me. The cars were back, as were the streetlights and the house lights. I was back from wherever the hitchhiker took me. I locked eyes with the driver as they drove by, having one of those weird moments where time seems to slow down. It was enough to jolt me back to reality. I released the parking brake and aimed my car back onto the road. I got home a little after 5 a.m. I tried to sleep, but was too worked up from my adventure, so I called in sick. I laid in bed all day, thinking about the hitchhiker, his words, and all those cars that end up in the gravel pit on Butter Street. Maybe those cars aren't from people who played the game wrong. Maybe they all played it right and just couldn't handle the answer to their question. It's been 3 days now since I picked up the hitchhiker. I can still smell the wet loam in my car, and his muddy footprints in the floorboard of the back seat are still there. As I write this, I look up from my monitor and look at the photo of my Abigail, taken 2 weeks before she died. She's beautiful, smiling, and happy. She's not at peace, and she does blame you. It's my favorite photo of her. I think I'll take it with me when I take a drive later tonight. I'm going back to see the hitchhiker. I have a hunch, and I don't know if it's relevant, but I feel it's important to share with anyone reading this that I'm wearing a gray Adidas hoodie and jeans. If somebody out there reading this picks up the hitchhiker later on and sees someone dressed like that in their back seat, well, then I guess we've solved part of the mystery. If you do pick up the hitchhiker, I hope you get the answer you're searching for. As I look outside, the skies are cloudy, but I hope the weather holds up for a drive later. It is a bad night for rain.
Whoa. Oh my God. Wow.
Like, I think he didn't go home. I think he already died.
Yeah.
He released the parking brake.
Mm,
Isn't that creepy?
that is creepy. That's a good
So
one.
creepy. I know, I like that one a lot.
Yeah.
Your turn.
I like the urban legendy component to that.
Yeah.
That's
me too.
Yeah. Spooky.
Kind of fun. And I felt like Halloween-y in a way.
Yeah. Because people do like to go out there, do dumb stuff on Halloween.
Do dumb, creepy shit. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. This one is a little bit longer, so I'm gonna see if I can speed it up.
Yeah.
And also it's a familiar theme as well to another story I read recently.
So, okay.
It is written by Point of No Return on No Sleep Again. And this is: every night my girlfriend wakes me up to tell the exact same joke. Before I start, I feel like I should let something very clear, but I think they mean make something very clear.
Yes.
I absolutely love Ellen. We've been living together for about 3 years now, but have known each other our whole lives. In fact, we were childhood friends, and I know this may sound like a fairy tale to some people, but it truly felt like we were always destined to be together. Even after graduation, when we started dating other people, it only felt truly right when we were with each other. So I don't know what took me so long to ask her out, but I'm really glad I did. We have the same taste in music, movies, and food. We laugh at the same dumb jokes and know exactly how to comfort each other in times of need. She's the kindest, most gentle and loving girl I ever met. We've even been talking about our plans for marriage and how we would like to have kids of our own. That's why it hurts so much how it all went terribly wrong in just 4
Uh-oh.
nights. I would also like to preface that Ellen doesn't have much of a family other than me, and some very distant aunts that she never met and doesn't even know their names. I was born in a big family, with 4 siblings and plenty of cousins that were always visiting. Ellen has none of that. She doesn't have any siblings, and her father was an alcoholic, abusive freak that died when she was young. I shouldn't giggle at that, but freak is kind of funny.
Yeah.
um,
Aggressive.
yeah. Her mother was a very kind and inspiring person that took care of the family by herself for many years, and almost a second mother to myself. So when she passed away last year, it hurt us both for a long time. But Ellen stayed strong. She's not the type to let her feelings easily surface, so you gotta be a lot more perceptive to get to what she truly feels. I used to pride myself in being capable of that. I felt like I knew her better than I knew myself. That's why this is all so strange, and frankly, terrifying. We were sleeping, and I was dreaming. I don't really remember what it was about, but for some reason I'm sure of it. Until I heard her voice, very close to my ear. Knock, knock. She was caressing my hair gently while sitting in bed and looking down at me. I slowly opened my eyes, groggy from sleep. Hey, what is it? She kept looking at me, fixated, and repeated, knock, knock. I glanced at the digital clock on top of the dresser. 3:27 a.m. I had work in just a few hours. What is it, Ellen? She paused. Please answer the joke, dear. Knock, knock. Knock, knock. Fine, I accepted, mostly because I was expecting some kind of surprise. Ellen wasn't the type to do what she was doing for no reason. Who's there? Her smile opened up and she answered, Not me, so don't answer the door. I kept looking at her, dumbfounded. What was that supposed to mean? Is that it? Is that the joke? Yes, she said, laying and covering herself with a blanket. Weirdo, I answered, closing my eyes and going back to sleep. Next morning, things went as usual. I'm gonna skip through here. Happens again. She wakes him up saying, knock knock, in the night. Knock knock over and over. Once again, it's 3:27 a.m. He's like, why are you doing this? And she says the same thing. He says, who's there? She says, not me, so don't answer the door.
Ew.
He says, what does that mean? I really don't get it. Yeah, and this happens, let's see, 4 nights in a row. So let me get past the 4th night. Yeah, not me, so don't answer the door. I stayed. Okay, so finally, on the 4th night, she says that he gets up and goes to the couch for the rest of the night. Okay, so I stayed on the couch as the day rose, and once Ellen woke up, she was acting normal again. Even asked me why I wasn't in the bed. I didn't answer. In fact, I didn't speak to her and simply left for work. She seemed very upset, but I wouldn't do anything about it. Once I got to work, I called my friend, told him everything that was happening in as much detail as I'm describing now. He didn't seem as worried as I figured he would be, but we agreed in making an appointment for next week. This friend is a psychologist. I left that out.
Okay.
So now I just needed to convince Ellen to come with me. I received plenty of text messages from her. She seemed very worried, sad, and even confused. She apologized a lot, and it broke my heart. I felt bad. I shouldn't have, but I answered her and made her promise it wouldn't happen again. I also told her about the appointment, and she seemed reluctant but agreed to go with me, so we made up. This was Ellen, after all, the girl I knew ever since I was 6 years old, the woman I loved and that had taken care of me for years. And as much as that strange behavior creeped me out, she wasn't doing anything particularly frightening or even dangerous. So for a brief while, I convinced myself I should give her another chance. When I returned home from work, we stayed together. She even prepared my favorite meal. Ellen was acting as gentle and caring as always, and I slept with her in our bedroom even though I was reluctant. Knock, knock. I
No,
couldn't believe it.
Ellen.
She promised me she wouldn't. Knock, knock. I gazed at the clock. 3:27 a.m. Always. Knock, knock. I was laying on my stomach, and I couldn't see her face. In fact, I didn't even bother to look at her. I was feeling more sad than scared at that point. Sad that she had broken her word. Knock, knock. Who's there? I answered, determined to just go back to sleep. Not me, so don't answer the door. I stayed quiet and closed my eyes. I just hoped I would be able to handle it until the appointment. To my surprise, I was actually able to sleep, probably because I hadn't been able to rest since last night. The following morning, I went back to not saying anything to Ellen, only very limited responses. I was expecting her to act the same as yesterday, trying to apologize, but she didn't. Mostly, she didn't say anything, almost as if she had accepted it. She also looked tired, or at least a little bit weak. I went to work, but I couldn't stop thinking about her. Blah, blah, blah. I decided to let her have the bedroom, and I would sleep on the couch. I wasn't sure if it would stop her, but held on to hope that she wouldn't go downstairs just to tell me the same knock-knock joke again. I covered myself with a blanket, shaking off that uneasy feeling, and tried to sleep. I had a deep sleep without dreams, felt like I was lost in darkness. Then I heard breathing. I opened my eyes to see Ellen standing above me, looking at me with big, fixated eyes and dilated pupils that didn't seem to belong in such a completely neutral expression, watching me sleep. I almost screamed in terror, jumped out of the couch, off the couch, and her eyes followed me as I stumbled through the dark room, creating distance between us. For a moment, I was able to glance at the clock above the table, 3:27 a.m. Ellen, what are you doing? I asked, desperate, but she didn't move. In fact, she didn't say anything, just stared at me, as if I was made of glass and she was looking right through me. Then I heard a knock on the front door.
Ew!
Instinctively, I looked in that direction. It was followed by another knock and another, someone pounding at the door.
Oh my God.
I glanced back at Ellen, and she was still staring at me. Slowly, I got closer to the door, and she didn't move. The pounding continued. "Who's there?" I yelled. It stopped, and then I heard a voice. "John? John, can you hear me? Open the door. John, please open the door." I froze in place. The voice kept calling me, but I couldn't believe it. It was Ellen's voice coming from the other side of the door.
Oh my God.
But it couldn't be. "I beg you, John, open the door. It's serious. She's not me. I swear. She's not me." Slowly, I turned my head to look at Ellen, standing in front of the couch. She was looking at me with the same fixated eyes and a terrible, wide grin across her face.
God.
The pounding continued. "John, open the door. You have to trust me." I stayed still, not knowing what to do, and I don't remember what happened after that. I just woke up in my bedroom. The digital clock indicates it's 4:21 a.m. Ellen isn't by my side. I'm completely alone. I'm trembling uncontrollably, and I don't know what's going on. I don't know what happened after I saw her terrible grin. I don't know if I opened the door. I tried to look for my phone, see if I could call the police or at least someone that I know, but I left it downstairs. All I have is Ellen's laptop, and it's where I'm writing this right now, to get advice. Because I can't go downstairs. The corridor is dark, very dark, almost as if the shadows were leaning or leaching into the room. They said leaning, but... and I can hear a faint scratching sound coming from below. What should I do?
Ew, dude. Okay, do you think the
Yeah.
real one is inside or outside?
I don't know, because her joke was, "Don't answer the door, it's not me."
But that's not her saying that, it doesn't seem like, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
Dude.
What do you think?
I think the
Is
real
the
one's
monster
outside.
inside?
I think the
real
monster's
one's
inside.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Ew. That is
Scary.
so creepy. Oh, the
Yeah,
pounding on the door. I hate
I know.
that.
Yeah, and then
I
you're
thought
like, "Oh, who do I
I
trust?"
know, I
Yeah.
know. I thought it was gonna be at the end, like, "Aren't you glad you whatever?" Because you know how
Yeah.
that the
Didn't open the
whatever
door.
format of that joke, yeah.
Mhm.
Um, that was
Yeah.
really creepy. Good one.
Yeah.
Good one.
Yeah. Very
Um,
creepy.
okay, my last one has, like, a little bit of Halloween, and it's pretty
Okay.
quick. This is also from No Sleep from Pros 40745. My roommate and his The Cat in the Hat costume.
Oh.
It was the 1st of November, and he was still wearing it. Our party was on the 29th of October, and it was funny then, hell, even on the 30th, it still made me laugh when I saw him occasionally creep out of his room to stock up on snacks from the kitchen. When I left the house for my 9 a.m. class on the 31st, and he was sitting in the kitchen with his Cat in the Hat costume still on, well, yeah, then I began to worry. John was
Ew.
quiet at the best of times, not too many friends, and I wasn't a stranger to sitting in silence at mealtimes. This was different, though. His unnerving smile was all I could really see of his face beneath the prosthetics and all the makeup. It didn't help that it was a shitty homemade costume either. Visible stitching and discolored tufts of fur made it all the creepier. Our other flatmate had dropped out at the start of the semester, so it was just John and me for a long time. He wasn't an inherently weird guy before this either. Quiet, yes, but friendly enough. Don't you have classes to go to? I asked as I left for work on the 2nd. He silently shook his head, not looking up from the book he was reading. Starting to get real fucking creepy round here, man. I muttered loud enough for him to hear as I shut the door behind me. I like it, I heard John bark with venom from the driveway. It was the night of the 3rd when I finally cracked and phoned his sister. The white patches of the suit were beginning to yellow, and there was an awful smell permeating the house.
Ew.
She thought I was kidding at first, but after I explained in detail what had been going on the last few days, she went quiet. She assured me that he had been texting her regularly, as he usually did, but had never mentioned the costume. I'd known the guy for a little over a year by that point, but I really didn't know that much about him. His sister told me that he'd been obsessed with the Cat in the Hat movie after he'd seen it in the cinema when he was 8 or 9, but grew out of that phase long ago. She assured me that she'd phone him and get to the bottom of whatever the hell was going on. It was the smell that woke me up. That's how pungent it was. Don't meddle in my affairs, John said, standing in the doorway with a dim light behind him, which partially illuminated that fucking costume. What the hell? Get out of here, you freak, I shouted in a panicked daze. Don't meddle in my affairs, he said again.
Yes.
His tone was
Sorry.
calm, but there was,
Not
I
funny.
know, the phrasing is kind of funny.
I'm
Don't,
it's
especially because
just
he's in a
kind of
Cat in
your
the Hat
lisp
costume.
and the Cat in the Hat.
Don't meddle in my
Metal.
affairs, he said again. His tone was calm, but there was a definite aggression behind it. He lingered there for a few more seconds, a silent tension between us. It was one of the few times in my life I'd ever felt genuine fear as I gazed at that horrendous cat costume and my roommate beneath it. The next day in class, I was going through my options in my head. My other friends had recommended calling the cops and that John was in need of help. I didn't want to get him into some kind of trouble, though, maybe even get him sectioned. My choice was made for me when 2 police detectives pulled me out of the lecture. They sat me down in the cafeteria with stern looks on their faces, and my first thought was, oh my God, had John killed himself? I don't know why, but that just seemed to make the most sense to me. I was dead wrong. Why didn't you report that he was missing? Did you not find it odd for him not to come home? One quizzed me.
Mm.
He isn't missing. He should be home right now, probably still wearing that stupid fucking costume. A dog walker had discovered John's naked body in the bushes not far from the house. The police reckoned he'd been dead since the night of the 29th. They never found anyone in the house during their search, only that tattered costume, which had been neatly folded on top of my bed.
Ew. Oh my God. That
You were
makes me
laughing,
feel
and I was
sick.
thinking, you're not going to be laughing for long.
Oh my
It's a
God,
good one,
that's
right?
so
I know.
scary.
Kind of makes me want to
Ooh.
barf a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really scary. Don't
Yeah.
meddle in my
In my
affairs.
affairs. I don't know why. That was kind of making me think of like a guy wearing a fedora who's like,
Oh, 100%. 100%.
yeah, don't
Yes.
meddle in my affairs.
Don't
And
meddle
it
in
was
my
just
affairs,
funny.
milady. I know.
Yeah,
The
exactly. But
ending's
no,
not funny at all. It's
no,
really
that's
fucking
not. It was
creepy.
my stomach dropped a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was waiting for that one line. And he'd be like, so
Yeah.
spooky.
No. Ew, I
Well,
hate
happy
that.
Halloween, you spooky little babies.
Yeah.
You can follow us at Girls Gone Spooky on social. We already talked about emailing us, DMing us. Please rate and review the pod if you like it. Hope you have a very happy and safe and fun Halloween. I honestly wish I were not too old to trick or treat because
Oh,
I miss
same.
that. I think we actually are gonna do like a wine walk, like just pour glasses
Oh,
of wine and walk around our
yeah.
neighborhood because we're in like a very
Fun.
cute kind of like old towny neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And I just did a quick walk this afternoon and it's like very cute in our area. So
Yeah.
we
Oh,
may do like adult trick or treating where we don't trick or treat, we just drink wine.
yeah.
So highly
I
recommend
love it.
that for all y'all. But yeah, we
Yeah.
love you guys. Stay spooky, and we will see you next week.
All right. Happy Halloween. Bye.
Bye.